Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this video, I'm going to be talking about why after the Australian Open 2024, Daniil Medvedev will return back to number one in the ATP rankings. Now, does this mean he'll be the best player in the world, objectively? Not necessarily, but will he top the rankings? 100%. Here's why. For those of you that don't know, the ATP rankings all come down to points accumulated and points to defend within the next calendar year. So pretty much from this point forward, up until the Australian Open, Daniil Medvedev has barely any points to defend. At Roland Garros, I believe he has 180 points out of 2,000 points. This goes for everyone, but 0 points to defend at Wimbledon. US Open, 0 points to defend, or 180 points to defend at the US Open out of 2,000. If you look at his results at the Masters 1000s from Rome in the season forward, he has semi-final of Cincinnati and doesn't have a deep run in Toronto. He's easily going to be one of the favorites on the hard courts there. He has a lot of points he can pick up there. The ATP Finals, a tournament he's proven he can be successful at, and he's won before, he has 0 points to defend there. All 3 of his matches going to a third set tiebreaker. So pretty decent level overall, but 0 points to defend, and he's for sure going to go back into that tournament, and he's pretty much guaranteed to make improvements on that from last year. And then coming up in the Australian Open, he only has 90 points to defend at that tournament, since he lost to Sebastian Korda pretty early in the tournament. So you're probably thinking, if the future is so bright for Daniil Medvedev and there's so much upside to his ranking, how come he's already so high? How come his ranking is so elevated? Well, that is because he was having pretty much unprecedented, insane amount of success pretty much right as soon after the Australian Open ended, right up till now. So if you think about the Australian Open, he lost that tournament, fell outside the top 10 for a really long time. I think it switched a gear in him, woke something up, maybe reignited a fire that he maybe felt was put out after his defeat to Nadal at the Australian Open back in 2022. But he has been playing amazing ever since. 3 titles in a row, I believe. Rotterdam, a 250, then Dubai, then final of Indian Wells, 600 points there. Miami 1000, Masters title, another 1,000 points. All these tournaments taking place right after the Australian Open. So in all the time he has to accumulate points up until the Australian Open, none of those tournaments are going to affect those points he accumulated right there. And those are going to stay with him for a whole nother year, all the way up until the time that the next Australian Open comes. So he's going to be able to hold those points in his ranking. So they're going to be just as valuable a few months from now, right up till the Australian Open, just as they are now. Other great success, Jannik Sinner, he kind of taunted Daniil Medvedev. You got the clay court season now. That hasn't historically been your best performances. We'll see how that fares for you. He did exceptionally well, actually, probably far better than anyone could have predicted his clay court season. Quarterfinals of Monte Carlo, I believe 180 points. Quarterfinals of Madrid, another 180 points. And then out of nowhere, wins the Rome Masters 1000, gets another 1,000 points. So if you're looking at 3 of the 5 most recent Masters 1000s that take place after the Australian Open, he has 5 tournaments there where he three of the 5 tournaments he made the final of or won it on 2 of them. So 3 of the last 5 Masters 1000s, he was in the final and he won 2 of them. So that in and of itself is an incredible run of success. 2 500 titles on top of it that all took place after the Australian Open. So those points are not going away anytime soon. And when you look at that, with the very few points he has to defend in his upcoming majors, the same reasons that caused him to fall outside of the top 10, meaning not doing well at Roland Garros, not doing well at the US Open, not doing well at any of the Masters 1000s, including Paris and Shanghai. I forgot to mention those. He's already 2 in the world, and he pretty much only has to go up from here. He has still so many lackluster results from the past calendar year that he has the chance to improve on to build up his ranking. And I think there's only two people that can really challenge him. That's Novak Djokovic and Carlos Alcaraz, and those are both excellent players. I'd say overall they are both better players than Daniil Medvedev. But if you look at Djokovic and Alcaraz, they don't play as much as Medvedev. I haven't looked up the stats or the matches played or the tournaments played, but I'm quite sure that both Alcaraz and Djokovic don't play quite as many tournaments and as many matches as Medvedev. So maybe if you're trying to subjectively pick the best player, you wouldn't necessarily look at how many tournaments or how many points are accumulated. You just look at the big matchups like the finals, the head-to-heads, the big tournaments. But the rankings aren't really based off of the biggest matches. They're based off how many points can you accumulate in a 52-week period. So the fact that Medvedev is playing week in, week out more often than those players, Alcaraz being injured a little bit more than Medvedev and having to miss various tournaments, including the ATP Finals, and Djokovic now in the latter stage of his career, trying to prioritize the health of his body and his well-being and saving his best performances for the majors. He's not playing as many tournaments either. That means he's not going to be playing as many 250s and 500s and maybe even 1000s as Daniil Medvedev is playing. So even if Djokovic gets slightly better results in the tournaments that they both play, Medvedev has the advantage of picking up a lot of different points while Djokovic and Alcaraz aren't playing. I think, and Alcaraz also has the pressure of the US Open final. Even if he wins that tournament, which he very well might, but it's still, I think, like at pretty much any time you're predicting a Grand Slam, you almost have to take the field, meaning any other player except that player for who's going to win it, except maybe Djokovic or Nadal if they're a very heavy favorite at the tournament. But I don't think at Alcaraz you can pick him at this point in his career as the outright favorite to win the US Open over everyone. So he has 2,000 points to defend there. Djokovic has 2,000 points to defend at the Australian Open, and he has all his points to defend at the ATP Tour Finals. I think he collected the biggest prize money in a tennis tournament in tennis history. I don't remember what that number was, probably around 4 or 5 million, but it was also 1,300 points. So he has 1,300 points to defend there. Medvedev has very few points at the US Open, very few at Roland Garros, none at the ATP Tour Finals, and only 90 at the Australian Open. And I know Alcaraz didn't play the ATP Tour Finals or the Australian Open, and that is an advantage for him. But I think when you consider him having to defend the US Open points, he still has to defend more points than Medvedev does. Last year it was a disappointment not winning any ATP Tour Finals matches, but that's a little bit how the rankings work. If you do bad the previous year, it's an opportunity for the next year. If you do really good in the previous year, it's pressure on for this year and your ranking susceptible to drop. We're almost guaranteed to see Casper Ruud's ranking drop. But anyway, back to the point with Medvedev's lack of points to defend up until the Australian Open, meaning the bulk of his points and his number 2 ranking in the world right now is coming from points in the small period that took place outside of the Australian Open. The big run of success that you've been hearing so much about in the media, he's going to have a huge opportunity to increase the points he can accumulate throughout the year while still being able to hold on to his incredible run of success and keep those points for a very long time. Not to mention, he's playing very well, and he's proven he can be successful on all surfaces. This is more for another video, but I can get into the reasons why I think Daniil Medvedev's such a successful player, almost like a deceptively difficult opponent, and why his game, while maybe not the most flashy or powerful, is so effective on the tour and has really stood the test of time against many of the best players in the past 5 to 15 years. So let me know your thoughts. That's why I think Medvedev will return to the number 1 ranking after the Australian Open in 2024. You don't necessarily have to think he's the best player or better than Djokovic or Alcaraz. But I think when you talk about points accumulated for that 12-week period, I think he will get back to that spot. Will he hold it? Like I said, like the opportunity he has now with Indian Wells, Miami, Rome, Dubai, Rotterdam, all those great tournaments where he accumulated points, he's going to feel a ton of pressure in that post-Australian Open to mid-May period to defend his points. But up until that point, he has a huge opportunity to improve his ranking. He's going to play a lot of tournaments. Doesn't really have any bad matchups. That's why I think he's going to return to the Australian Open. That's why he's going to return to number one after the Australian Open. It's going to come down a lot to his success in majors. He's proven he can be good on clay. We'll see if he makes a deep run at the French Open. He's never made that before. People have thought he can be a good player on Wimbledon. Has never had an amazing tournament there. We'll see if that changes. I think US Open's a big opportunity. The entire US swing. Very few points to defend there. And the ATP Tour Finals, he won it once. 0 points to defend. He's pretty much guaranteed to be back there. And Australian Open, he's a very dangerous player there too. So let me know if you agree. Do you think Alcaraz or Djokovic or someone else will be able to hold him off? Will he not get back to the number one ranking spot by the Australian Open 2024? Will he never get back to number one in the world? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hope you enjoyed my video and my breakdown. Stay tuned for more. Thank you.